A government plan for 2 new Victoria Harbour ferry routes. And Pope Francis refuses to comment on a sex abuse cover-up allegation against him.
Good evening and welcome. The Transport Department has proposed new ferry routes as well as the introduction of water taxis. Sharon Tang has more.
Something new for ferry passengers. The Transport Department has proposed opening up an in-harbour circular service starting in September next year. With Kai Tak being the starting and ending point, the ferry will traverse through Hong Kong, Tsim Sha Tsui East, Central and West Kowloon. It will operate on a daily basis with at least 22 sailings, while there will be fewer trips on Sundays and public holidays. There will be various ticket options and some passengers will be eligible for concessions. But do people think a so-called water taxi is a good idea? This woman doubts if the route is that convenient after all, since many of the stations can be reached by buses. Still, it's the operator who will decide on the route and number of stops. There's also talk of reopening service between Central and Hong Kong. It was suspended in 2011 because there weren't enough passengers. Potential operators can indicate their interests through submitting documents to the Transport Department before 27th next month. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Pro-democracy group Demosisto says 2 of its members were taken away and questioned by authorities while travelling on the mainland early this year. One of them was reportedly detained for 5 hours and pressured into providing details on the Occupy protests. Today, prominent human rights lawyer and chairman of the Bar Association, Philip Dykes, also revealed he failed to head to Beijing back in June.
I don't see any reason for assuming a deterioration in relationships with main organisations.
That was Philip Dykes after his election victory to chair the Hong Kong Bar Association. In a newsletter today, he reviewed rejection from Peking University. Dykes planned to attend the closing sessions for a common law course in the capital city back in June, which past chairman had attended. Yet a day or 2 after the university issued a letter of invitation to facilitate his visa application, the human rights lawyer was informed he must not come without further explanation. 2 Bar Association members who taught the course were also rejected without reasons given. One of them is said to be senior counsel Hector Pun. Dykes chose not to talk about this until now to prevent embarrassing students of the course, which has now been suspended. A professor from Peking University denies Dykes is unwelcomed in Beijing but said there will be changes to the course every year. Pro-democracy group Demosisto also spoke out today on 2 members' recent experiences on the mainland. Without giving the names or gender, the group said one of them claimed to have been handcuffed to a chair in March and interrogated over the group's activities. Another member was said to have been questioned in a hotel room and forced to sign an apology letter just this month.
They are not anyone is really high profile. They have never been arrested in Hong Kong.
Definitely a scare tactics. We are talking about our members being detained with a hostile attitude from the Bureau.
They called on the government to explain and want attention from the international community. Vice Premier Han Zheng praised Hong Kong's disciplinary forces for their contributions to the success of One Country, Two Systems. Han didn't reference any particular cases, but he did say the delegation is patriotic and the central government has always paid attention to Hong Kong's disciplined services. The 120-strong group is led by Secretary for Security John Lee. Among the delegates are heads of the police force and the immigration department. After Beijing, they will head to Shanghai and Hangzhou to get an update on mainland developments.
A private burial service on Sunday will conclude nearly a week of events honoring former Arizona Senator John McCain. A former Navy pilot, prisoner of war, congressman, and presidential contender died of brain cancer Saturday. McCain will lie in state on Wednesday in Phoenix on what would have been his 82nd birthday. On Saturday, a funeral at Washington National Cathedral. Former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama will speak at the service. President Donald Trump is not expected to attend. A private funeral is planned for Sunday. McCain will then be buried in the Naval Academy Cemetery in Maryland, beside his Academy classmate and longtime friend Chuck Larson.
Pope Francis has returned to the Vatican after a trip to Ireland, where he issued a sweeping apology for what he called the crimes of the Catholic Church there. He said church officials didn't respond with compassion, truth or justice to the many children and women who were abused over generations. This as a former top Vatican official urged the Pope to resign over what he called Francis's own culpability in covering up sexual allegations against a prominent cardinal in the US. Peter Coveos has details.
Pope Francis begged forgiveness in Ireland for the sexual abuse of children by priests and for the cover-up. 300,000 people came to see him speak, the largest crowd during his two-day papal visit, but far less than the 500,000 expected, showing the Church's diminishing influence here. On the streets, people were vocal about what role religion should have in the country.
We want to see a complete separation of church and state. We apparently have it in our constitution, but it's not really there. So we just want to see the Catholic Church just pack up and leave us alone if we don't want to be a member of their church. They shouldn't be dictating our society to us.
Hundreds marched in the town of Tuam. It was here an estimated 800 babies died at a Catholic church-run orphanage and home for unmarried mothers. Protesters want accountability.
What the Pope didn't acknowledge today, yet again, was the central responsibility of the Vatican for a policy and a process of directly, willfully, determinedly covering up those crimes and seeking to protect the institutions of the Church, its power, its money, its wealth, from accountability.
Speaking to reporters aboard the plane returning to Rome from Dublin, the pontiff briefly mentioned the accusation.
Io non dirò una parola su questo.
He simply said, "Judge it for yourselves. I will not say one word on this." The Pope left Ireland behind, but can he do the same with this ongoing crisis? Peter Coveos, TVB News.
A Japanese tourist has reportedly arrived in China after being expelled by North Korea. Pyongyang's state-run media said the man had been detained on suspicion of breaking the country's laws. An online statement reads that Tomiyuki Sugimoto was released on humanitarian grounds. Sugimoto is a videographer. He is believed to have been detained for shooting video of a military facility while touring the western port city of Nampo in North Korea. Tokyo and Pyongyang do not have diplomatic relations, so Japan sought the man's release through the North Korean embassy in Beijing. Japan's foreign ministry declined to comment. Zimbabwe President Emmerson Mnangagwa has taken the oath of office for the second time in 9 months yesterday. After the ceremony, the 75-year-old told the crowd of 60,000 that their democracy had come of age. But the July 30th election is being disputed by opposition leader Nelson Chamisa, who claims there was vote rigging. The military-backed president took power from longtime leader Robert Mugabe 9 months ago. Mnangagwa faces a mammoth task of rebuilding a worsening economy and trying to unite a nation divided by an election that many hoped would deliver change.
Voters came out in droves to cast ballots in an anti-corruption referendum in Colombia, but not enough to implement the new measures. For the plans to be enacted, 12.1 million votes needed to be cast. They were about 500,000 short. Tougher penalties on corrupt officials, term limits and a reduction in lawmakers' salaries were among the 7 proposed changes. Newly elected President Ivan Duque urged officials to press forward with the reforms despite the shortcoming in votes. The country's financial department estimates graft costs the country $17 billion annually.
Still ahead on tonight's news, island-wide mosquito eradication effort on Cheung Chau. Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Neil Simon dies. And meet Miss Hong Kong 2018. Welcome back to TVB News. Authorities have been stepping up mosquito control on Cheung Chau today, one of two main sources of a recent spate of local dengue infections. The Food and Environmental Hygiene Department disinfected all schools and campsites on Cheung Chau before expanding the effort to the rest of the island. So far, 9 out of the 26 patients either lived on the island or visited the place before falling ill.
The eldest daughter of a professor accused of killing his wife and second daughter told the court today that her parents did not get along, but they tried to make peace for their children. Caleb Loam was at the High Court.
Ko Kim's son's colleague at the Chinese University, Dick Chow, testified at the High Court today. Ko, an associate professor in anesthesia, was charged with murdering his wife and second daughter in 2015. The two were found dead in one of the family's vehicles. In the trunk of the car was a yoga ball filled with carbon monoxide with its air plug removed. Chow said he saw Ko inject the lethal gas into 2 yoga balls after an experiment rehearsal. The balls were not leaking gas when they left the laboratory. Ko Mei-ling, Ko's eldest daughter, also testified today. She said her parents used the vehicles interchangeably. She was aware of her father having an affair, and she felt betrayed at first. She later thought it was understandable as her parents were not getting along. The couple had arguments, but tried to resolve their issues for the sake of the 4 children in the family. The witness said she helped her parents communicate, and the couple's relationship improved after a vacation trip. Ko Mei-ling was studying in Malaysia when her mom and sister died. Her father told her the deaths over the phone. She said her dad was sobbing at the time. She also talked about happier times, such as her father making toys with her brother. Whenever the daughter recalled happier moments of the family, the defendant could be seen smiling at her. Caleb Loon, TVB News.
An extra location for young people to broaden their horizon through working holidays. Hungary will begin accepting applications for working holiday visas starting on September 1st. The visa will allow young Hong Kong people to stay in Hungary for up to 12 months. And during that period, they may work in the country to finance their stay and enroll in one short-term study course. Applicants must be aged between 18 and 30, and there is an annual quota of 200 for the visa.
The man known as Broadway's master of comedy has died. Playwright Neil Simon, who penned stage hits like The Odd Couple and Barefoot in the Park, was 91.
A New York Times Magazine profile once described Neil Simon like an accountant or librarian who dressed just this side of drab. While he may have been mild-looking, Simon was a relentless writer and rewriter. His stage successes included the Brighton Beach trilogy, The Prisoner of Second Avenue, Last of the Red Hot Lovers, and The Sunshine Boys. Many of his plays were adapted into movies. Along the way, Simon picked up 4 Tony Awards, including one for a comedy about bickering roommates. Oscar, a slobby sports writer, and Felix, a fussy photographer, made up The Odd Couple.
I always liked the play most because that's the origin of it, that's the beginning. When you do the movie, it's great because we had Walter Matthau and Jack Lemmon.
Simon started as a radio and TV writer, but as he turned to plays, audiences embraced his ability to focus on middle-class urban life to tell the American experience. And he excelled at recognizing life's little annoyances. From 1960 through the mid-1990s, a new Simon play debuted almost every theatrical season. For 7 months in 1967, he had 4 Broadway productions running at the same time. Simon was nominated for 13 other Tonys. He received a Pulitzer Prize, the Kennedy Center Honors, 4 Writers Guild of America Awards, and in 1983 he even had a Broadway theater named after him. In 2006 he won the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. Simon was married 5 times, twice to the same woman. He is survived by his 4th wife, 2 daughters, 3 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandson.
Can't top this, for me anyway.
Back locally, 23-year-old Hira Chan was crowned Miss Hong Kong 2018 last night. As Kena Chu reports, the nursing graduate aspires to raise mental health awareness in the city and help those living with Alzheimer's disease.
Hira Chan won the crown in this year's Miss Hong Kong pageant. The Chinese University of Hong Kong nursing graduate attributes her participation in the contest to her background in healthcare.
I attended the internship at the mental ward last year, and then I met a depression girl. Most of the girls nowadays, it's easy to lack of confidence, and I hope I can try to build up my confidence and show them you can do it. Other girls can do it as well.
She also aspires to help elderly people with Alzheimer's disease.
I saw a lot of older people in the hospital, and then they always forgot different things. And I can see that their families are also in pain, like they may have the Alzheimer's disease. And I hope to invent a notebook for them, but it is an implanted notebook, and they can memorize or to record all their daily living.
First runner-up Amber Tang is an architectural trainee. She was also crowned Miss Photogenic. Sarah Ting, a consultant pharmacist, came third. In this year's Miss Hong Kong pageant, 20 candidates were put through a series of contests. The audience joined a judging panel in choosing the champion and runners-up through a mobile app. Here's a word of advice from the beauty queen.
If you don't have the confidence or courage to do something you want to, and the things will never happen.
Kena Chu, TVB News.
And that's the news.
Thanks for joining us.